Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Rob.
Morning, Rob.
So Brian, you put your right pin on.
That bad boy right there. Thank
Good
you for
job.
that. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So today we're going to talk about kind of leveling up for next year and raising your standard. To me, raising your standard means that you're not willing to accept below your standard. We had a T2 meeting. We talked a little bit about team leaders and how do they manage their team. And implied in those conversations were, if you have a standard and you don't enforce it, then you have no standard. If that makes any sense, right? So you say, hey, everybody on my team is going to be successful and do 12 transactions a year, and 2 people don't do 12 transactions, you have no standard. That makes sense? Yes? All right. And in terms of our business, who thinks our business is a little bit riskier than a salary job? We have, it looks like kind of the majority, right? Does anybody know anybody that was in corporate America? Because I just encountered this yesterday. Somebody's friend was working in corporate America, making into the 6 figures, and they had this thing called a restructure. You ever hear of that? And then they go from whatever they were making to 0. We are blessed with a business where we control the outcome of what we get. Okay. The market does not control our destiny, does it? Anybody feel the market kind of controls where we go, or is a large part of how successful we are? Anybody?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. How is that, Ivy?
Yeah, well, I've been in business a long time. We've been through 3 really bad down markets. One where property values went from $110 a foot down to $60 a foot. And people still need to buy and people still need to sell. And you have to be just flexible enough and understanding enough to be able to help these people. So, when people tell me that, the market's bad, I'm just going to take a long vacation or I'm just going to take off for a while. I think that, when the market is slow, it's a better opportunity for everyone to make money because a lot of people are they're not in it. They're not focusing on it. So you can't change your focus. And that's what we do in Dallas. When the market gets tough, the tough get going.
And would you agree with this, Ivy, that 3 or 4 years ago or 5 years ago, we were in a momentum market that you really didn't need to have that much skill. You kind of just needed to show up, right?
You had no skill.
Right. You needed to show up, right? And now we've transitioned into what I call a skills market.
Absolutely.
Okay. And in 2021, end of 2020, maybe even the beginning of 2022, there was like 1.5 million real estate agents in the country. And I think we're all saying there's too many agents, right? Did anybody remember that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody was licensed, people didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Fran, do you know how many NAR members are nationally? Is it like 1.1 million or even 1 million?
It's 1 million, yeah, and it's down, but it's not down much. So, it's down maybe a couple 100,000, but it's
Fran Blakely, is that a thumbs up? Because you just were at a NAR conference. Is it
about
about
a million. Right now it's about 1.2 million, but they do expect that it's going to decrease a little bit.
So it's 1.2 million from 1.5. So we got a big reduction in agents. The transaction volume has gone down, but honestly, my heart goes out to somebody who's worked for a company for 14 years, builds up, gets the pay raises, the merit raises, and then all of a sudden the economy changes and then 5,000 people get laid off and your number's on there. That's not stability. We control our destiny in this business. And Ivy said it, there's always going to be people that need to buy and sell. And I think Ivy, in the Dallas Fort Worth Metro, it's becoming a bit of a buyer's market now, right?
Yes, 5.5 months of inventory.
Would you agree it probably needs more skill to properly position and sell properties now than it did 2 years ago?
Sure, absolutely.
So therein lies the opportunity. And today's session is raise your standard, right? And when you raise your standard, you refuse to allow, you refuse to compromise on what your standard is. And for example, if you're running a team of 5 people and you let 2 of them perform below the standard, then I would tell you that you have no standard, right? If everybody doesn't comply to it, you have no standard. All right. Anytime you sincerely want to make a change, the first thing you need to do is raise your standard. And I remember Tony Robbins said this is a must compared to a should, right? I should make 5 calls or 10 calls a day versus I must make 5 or 10 calls a day, right? If you don't have your standard high, you're going to slip into the same behaviors that put you where you were before. Now, who's not satisfied with how 2025 is going to end up and wants a better year? It's not a stick up, but I'm going to put 2 hands up. Anybody else?
Me, Eric Pruitt.
Okay, Eric. And what are you going to do differently, Eric?
Figure out half the stuff you guys shared the last 2 days and implement some of it.
Okay.
The question, can someone put together a good note sheet on how, when that guy spoke from Remax, on what we need to do right away with our Remax.com sites?
Okay. I don't know, Eric, if you want to volunteer, but most of the people on the call weren't at our T2 event. Maybe that's something that you want to put on your priority list for next year. If you're new to Remax, our T2 event is for platinum agents and above, which means 250,000 in gross commission income. I don't know if anybody wants to volunteer to talk about what they heard from Travis Saxton at the event. And if not, I'll dig into my memory bank and try to recall as much as I can. Anybody have a good memory? Lynn Schmitz, is your memory good?
Not after arriving at 5 a.m. I'm actually right now looking at my notes to see if there's anything that I can share. Yeah, some of the things I talked about was the lead concierge, Max Refer, Max Engage, Max AI, Mass, MAAS seemed to be one of the things that everybody was most interested in, and that stands for Marketing as a Service. There's a free version, and then there's about a $25 version that you can add some things right from the site to your social media. Let me see what else. Max Engage, I highlighted that to do some more research into. And it looks like there are things on there that actually allow the agents to earn points and turn them into Remax currency.
Beth, do you remember anything else that we spoke about there with Travis Saxton? Or Eric?
I'm not muted, am I? Okay.
No.
Everything is just, moving toward being powered by AI, all the things Lynn outlined. Marketing as a service is probably the most immediately available thing that you would go to Max Center. When you get a listing, you're presented, I think, 3 options. 1 is free and 2 you pay for, and good, better, best kind of a thing. The approach he wants to completely revamp Max Center. He said it, quote unquote, sucks now, and wants to make it a lot more user-friendly, a lot more like using AI, where you either use your voice or type in a regular question of how do I do this? And then Mac Center finds the content for you to use it. That seemed to be the common thread throughout, was just really a lot of AI powering everything we do throughout. And I don't know that it will be that obvious that it's using AI, but it will make everything a lot more user friendly so that agents use all the RE/MAX services a lot more than they currently do. All the, using RE/MAX University for your training. Oh, there was also a onboarding. I was very interested in that. There was a new onboarding program coming online where the agents are incentivized to meet certain milestones, and also the team leaders will see how they're doing, and there's incentives to meet the milestones, and you get points, and you can use your points to buy things like you can buy Zillow leads, you can buy R4 tickets. Those are what I remember off the top of my head.
So,
One thing, Rob, I remember, this guy was, his prior position was created Compass Technologies.
Oh, right.
And that got my attention. And also, what the Sky? He was talking about Sky. Is that the AI, or what is Sky that you talked about?
I think Sky is the AI like ChatGPT, but it's
It was a virtual assistant.
Yeah, right.
A chat, kind of like a virtual assistant to chat
Mhm.
with. Yeah. He says his motto for RE/MAX, the future is grow, promote, and operate. And his goal is to make sure our transactions remain ahead of everyone else's. Right now, we used to be 11 or 12 transactions a person. That number's fallen. So he really wants to ramp that up. And Sky is also it's a recruiting tool that brokers can use to help them. And he's going to have lots of coaching available. I mean, I was really impressed with him. I think he's going to do a great job of turning RE/MAX around and making everyone aware of how great RE/MAX really is.
Well,
I mean, part of, elevating your business and raising your standard is, as we automate these things, the question is, what are you going to do with the time that you get back? Because he gave an example of a kitchen, and then AI completely redid that kitchen. And he said that for that example, it could even give you a cost estimate from vetted local contractors, or a backup of going through one of the national companies like Home Depot. Now, if you weren't at the event, maybe it sounds like I'm just babbling here, but what I'm saying is, you have an old kitchen. Our technology can virtually remodel that kitchen and give you an estimate for what it costs, so that we can enhance our marketing. Now, with all that information being done for us, my question to everybody on the call is, what are you going to do to repurpose that time and add value to your business, right? Because to me, that was incredible. Another thing that was incredible, Ivy, which I heard, he said that you can upload your home inspection report, okay, and it can identify, like an attorney would or a consultant, what's important, do a detailed list to them, and then also, provide projections on what it might cost to repair those items, so you can decide if it's important. So a lot of those things are going away, that were things that we used to do to add value. And, now we need to figure out how we're going to level up, right? And do things that are probably more important to the process. So I thought that was pretty profound, pretty amazing, but also, begs, what are we going to do differently?
I'll tell you,
John, did you have something? Maybe he was talking. So, another thing that I got from Travis talking, and you want to level up your business, we need to lean into the network. Okay, and I don't know if it was Travis or if it was maybe Glenn or somebody else speaking about, finding where the buyers are coming from for our listings and being able to market directly to them, understanding better where those are using AI. Okay. But if you do that, we have a tremendous advantage where, we're a global network. We talked about, if you're in Central Jersey or Monmouth County, a lot of those buyers are coming from New York or Staten Island. The question was, how many of us are marketing ourselves to those agents in the feeder markets, right? Because now with artificial intelligence, it can be easier than ever to identify, where the people are coming from that are moving into your backyard, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that Glenn Baker said that really hit me is that the agents who are not using AI will be replaced by those who are using it. And I think that's profound. So we need to level up and get on with it.
It's
So,
called
Ivy, do you think an AI strategy is a good idea or maybe a must for 2026?
a must. Rob, he had, who was it, Glenn Baker said it, or the other, someone said it, that the AI right now is kind of like when I first got into real estate 40 some years ago, and it went from MLS books to computers. I remember a lot of the people, a lot of the agents, the older agents saying, I'm not going to learn that crap. I'll just retire. Well, we don't want to be the old, I don't want to be one of those old agents saying, I'm not learning that crap. I'll just retire. I still got kids to put through college.
I think an entire technology strategy must be undertaken or you will fall behind.
Yes.
Yep. And part of raising your standard to everybody that's made a comment here is, the dynamics and the challenges of the market are what give us relevance, right? Because if their market was easy, we would be in the momentum market of 2020, 21, where, there was 25% more agents. And Jason, did agents really need a lot of skill to sell a house in 2021?
We could get out of our car during lunch, trip over a buyer and have them under contract 30 minutes later.
I mean, it was pretty simple because, like, hey, there's two houses, Jason. Which one do you want? You gotta let me know by 5.
And how much do you want to overpay for it?
Yeah, exactly. How much you want to overpay? You want to negotiate? You want to negotiate up? How much? So
Which kid do you want to give up to get this house?
yeah. So the change in the market was inevitable, and the change in the market gives us some. It gives us an ability to provide some separation from everybody else. And when I sit down with team leaders or some agents talk about 2026, I'm not banking on the number of transactions going up. Right. I'm not saying, hey, Eric, you did 72 transactions. The market's going to come up 15%. So you're magically going to go up to 100. It's not going to be that way. Okay. I'm assuming that the market might even get worse. But we still need to grow our business. There are people growing in flattened down markets because they're the Wayne Gretzky's of the real estate industry, right? Who knows that analogy?
Go to where the
Even
puck,
in his down year, he was great.
no, go to skate to where the puck's not, skate to where the puck's going, not to where it's at, or something like that.
Yeah, skate to where the puck's going. Everybody's playing where the puck's at. He's going where the future is. And that's what we need to do. We need to look at where the future is, and play where the puck is at.
Hey, Rob, I can tell you coming back from NAR that they are going to start discussing, some rules and regulations regarding AI. It was big topic of conversation at the NAR conference. So that'll probably take them a while to unwind those, but there was a lot of AI stuff. And I'm sorry if I came out of context. We have like two things going on in the office right now, so it was a little crazy. But we'll see what happens with that. I don't know how they're going to police it.
So, but what's the concern, Fran, that about AI?
I think the disclosure that maybe something is of photos, especially might be not real photos, and anything that anyone does with terminology, as far as marketing and stuff like that, should the agent is responsible for verifying whatever AI may have created for them. So that should not really be an issue because that falls on the shoulders of the individual. You want to use AI to write your script. What I saw there was actually was great. We had Matt Britton who was there, who did he was a keynote speaker, the general session, and he did a listing presentation. I mean, like standing out and being different is what it's all about, right? He did a listing presentation. He made it 12 o'clock the night before, put it to country music, used an avatar to do the singing that looked like him. And it was just an unbelievable, like you come across that on Facebook when you're marketing a property, you're going to stop and pay attention to it, right? So it was anything you can do to stand out. And how can you stand out? But then on the other end of the scope, at some of the meetings, they were talking about promulgating rules. So I have no idea what they're going to come up with. It's just the surface of the conversation.
Jason, you want,
Excuse me, I think it's really going to be more disclose.
Mm-hmm.
As far as AI is concerned. I think they're not going to try to inhibit it in any way. They want us to use it, but just disclose that that's an avatar. Just disclose that
Right.
this description came or photo enhanced.
Right.
Well, and you have to also provide the source of information. That's the key. Always do it is to make sure people understand the source of the information.
Jason, you went to train the trainer for Bold Trail.
I did.
Now, is there a lot of AI built on the back end of Bold Trail that you've learned about or harnessing?
There's I think there's a lot of things coming. If I understand it, I don't know how much you guys got into it at the retreat. By the way, I apologize, I missed it. I just had too many things at the same time. They've got a new thing coming out that will allow us to, and actually it's probably available for pre-order right now, the Max AI that can effectively be your AI assistant within the system. There's a whole slew of enhancements that they're looking to do with it, getting down to the point where at 2 a.m., that robot could have a conversation with your client, prepping them for a meeting that you could do in the morning. I mean, it's going to get to that stage, I think. There's a lot of stuff on the backside where brokers are able to, with AI, look at all of your stats and understand what we're doing as agents and not. There's some stuff with recruiting that they're using AI to predictive models where if you're looking to bring people onto your team, bring people onto your brokerage of with report cards and through Recruit that can kind of match up and say these agents are likely going to make a move in 3 months because stuff is down. So there's a lot of AI getting embedded, which as it should. I mean, almost every major platform out there, not to get way off track, but Compass has been trying to implement stuff with AI for a while, and that's why they tout a lot of their technology. Bold Trail is the next competition to it, but it's also not owned by one company. So what I think is better about that, all the embedded sources, they're not keeping them in house. They're using OpenAI to do it. They're using Gemini and a few other plugins. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming down. It's going to take a while to work the kinks out within our individual mainframe, but yes, it is coming.
I get solicited by many different merchants out there. I got one the other day that said, I am an AI virtual assistant, and they started asking me about my business, if I needed help with the business financing, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but when I kind of usually hang up on those, but I wanted to listen to it to see what they had to say. It was very unique and very to the point. And I thought it was pretty cool, and I think that's where we're heading.
You're getting back to you bringing all this home to looking at 2026, and you know, how are we going to leverage or lean into, you know, a new standard for the upcoming year? And one thing that's probably certain is things will be uncertain. Would you all agree with that?
Yep.
You know, as soon as everybody thinks something's happening, you count on it not happening, right? Interest rates are going down. Well, maybe not, right? The market has to rebound, right? We're at 4 million. Are we still anticipating around 4 million for 2025?
I've seen one report to say 5.2, so who knows? You know what? Real estate is always uncertain. If anyone ever wants to predict real estate, you'd be a billionaire.
And Jason, the other thing I would say is that that national number doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot if it's not if the party hasn't come to your town, right?
If we're not the ones selling those 5.2 million, then does it really matter what they predict is going to get sold?
Yep. But raising your standard, like, you know, I've been doing this for 29 years in Remax. You know, I am not concerned about, you know, a market having gone through several pretty, you know, unpredictable, challenging markets, because there are people that have been in the business for longer than I, and they're not concerned about the market. Mr. Pruitt, you've been in the business for more than 29 years, and you plan on sticking around longer. So clearly you're not dependent upon what the market does for your success.
I've been praying for this market. They need us now. They didn't need us for the last 5 years. Now they want the top producing agents. I'm starting to get come list me calls and people calling. You know, we tried our best friend's daughter, but it didn't work. 2 years ago, those would have sold. We would have to sell them.
Eric, if you choose, you could probably have a very successful January 1, huh?
Yes.
And
That was
for those who-
First of all, Rob, I want to thank you for putting this thing on. It was fantastic. But you also shared something about when you said only 2% of the time are things happen to us that are outside of our control. The other 98% of the time, it's some action we took or didn't take, and what was that saying you said?
So I borrowed that from Jay Abraham, and it resonated with me so clearly, Eric, because I thought about the agents that come back and say that seller was a jerk or that buyer was unrealistic. And this is the quote, and I'm going to give Jay Abraham credit. 2% of what happens to us are acts of God that we can't control. 98% of what happened to us are a result of the actions we take or fail to take, decisions we make or don't make, forces and factors that are immutable that we either recognize or don't recognize, either harness or refuse to harness. To me, that says it's 98% on us and 2% on, you know, random act of a crazy client, a bad agent on the other side. You know, it basically it's really our control, and you probably who finds that hard to believe? Anybody? No, nobody finds that hard to believe.
Of course.
You think that there's a lot more them than us, Ivy, that impact us, or you believe that we control most of what happens, like 98% of what happens is under our control?
Absolutely. What you think is what you create. There's no question about it. And I think that's why successful agents are the ones who do what nobody else wants to do. and they have to think it first. They have to believe they can. And once they set it in, once you put it down in writing, there's been a lot of statistics about, people who meditate. Meditation's good, but if you write it down, you have a bigger option to actually achieve your goal. Okay. So once you think things and believe in it, then you got to write it down. And people don't do that. And then once you write it down, you have to see it. And when you see your goal and you see yourself reaching your goal, then it's there. And people have to believe in it. And the other thing, I keep saying successful people do what nobody else wants to do. These agents who got into this business to be transaction agents and to just hit and run, they're not going to be in this business long. You're going to stay in it because you do the things that produce the value and you step it up. So, be grateful for these agents who don't know what they're doing because you're going to outrun them every time.
And
They say if you want to be the top 1%, you have to be willing to do what the other 99% don't.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey,
And-
Rob,
Preach that to my team.
I think it was either Howard Britton or Mike Ferry or someone used to say, what we think about, we bring about. And
That's
he
right.
would look down at someone in the group, some guy down in the group, and he says, well, that's not always true, because if that was true, he'd turn into a woman. So.
Rob, we see this every time that there's a dip in inventory, and there's always a group of agents that say, oh, there's no business, there's nothing to sell. And then, I always look at the MLS and see that there's listings coming on. And I'm like, well, if there's listings coming on, they should be mine. We shouldn't be letting other people get that business. We're the best agents, and we should be getting out there with the positive mind saying, we're going to get it, because if someone's going to get it, it should be us.
Yeah, and if you weren't out at our T2 event, I actually made a declaration. I declared a first-time home buyer crisis. And I did that because in the NAR survey of buyers and sellers, and this question's only open to people that weren't at the event. What's the average age of a home buyer today? Not a first time, but the average
40.
age of a home buyer.
41.
40.
Hold on, Kathy, you had your hand up. Kathleen Moran. What's the average age?
First time home buyers are 40 and repeat home buyers are in like 56, I believe.
So repeat home buyers are 63 and the average home buyer is 59.
Wow.
What's the first time home buyer?
40.
40.
40. Okay.
Okay, and it's up from 33 5 years ago. Now,
And 20 years ago, it was 25.
yeah, I think it was 25 or 26. So, but why is that?
Things
Does
are
anybody
more
have an answer?
expensive.
So Ivy says it's more expensive. That's true.
They're waiting to have
But-
children.
Yeah,
And
more money.
So who said they're waiting to have children? Katie?
I did.
So Katie, is it that they're waiting to have children so they're not buying the house, or is it because they don't buy the house that they're waiting to have children? Is it the chicken or the egg, or the other way around?
That's the question.
They're not
So-
even getting
Well,
married yet.
Well, I was going to say that actually what Katie just brought up, there's a lot of social enzymes that are going into that. People are getting married later. They,
Much
wages are
later.
going up. They can't afford to do it. They're having children later. They don't see the value of what they used to call the American. There's a lot of social stuff that economists put out as to why that number's going up.
So
After
That-
25-year-old guys are living in their mother's basements.
all right, so Kathleen, you raise your hand.
I think it's because we have not educated them as to the real value of home ownership.
All right, so I have a theory on that, Kathleen. When 20 years ago, when somebody was buying a house, did you get a call on your cell phone and agree to meet them at the house, or did you have them come to the office and educate them?
I had them come into the office and I educated them. I went through every step of the home buying process.
Now, how often do you think that happens now with other agents?
Awesome.
5% of the time.
I would say it's probably even less than
That's
that.
probably 5.5 times too high.
Okay, but it's funny, but here's what I'm saying is that, it's not that how many of you have come across, a young couple or an individual that's making good money, and they're 28 or 30 years old? Have you seen that?
Sure.
And has anybody taught them the financial literacy or the benefits of home ownership versus buying a home? I don't think they, as a matter of fact, I don't think we completely understand that.
I've
I don't know
had
if
those
you-
conversations, but not with every client, to be perfectly honest.
So Jason, you know what the implication of the age of home ownership, first-time home ownership, going from 33 to 40 is on the fertility rate and the population?
Oh, I imagine it's probably like 2.5, 3 times.
So we are not now with our government, and
In fact, it might be wrong.
I'm not making a political statement here, with our government limiting migration, right?
Mhm.
Our fertility rate is not keeping up with the population.
Right.
Okay, you need to have like a 2.1 fertility rate. We're at 1.7. The reason we're at 1.7 is because people are starting their families later, and the highest correlation to starting a family is home ownership. The reason why families are delayed is because most rentals are limited in their ability to support a like
Larger
children.
family.
Yeah. So Jason, you're sitting down, listen to this one. The cumulative effect of that over the past 15 years is 13 million children have not been born because the average age of home ownership has gone up. POW, right? Crisis.
Wages. I think the economic factor that me and Katie were just talking about probably is the result of all of that and everything else, not necessarily the reasons behind it, but that's drastic.
But Jason, I'm gonna call you out on that, and I'm gonna say that you're buying the media story, right? Oh, student debt, it's unaffordable to buy a house. Well, if you make a plan, you can buy a house. The reason people don't make a plan is because this statement. Hey, Jason, has anyone taken the time to sit you down and share with you what it takes to become a successful home buyer in 2026?
So I'll throw a nugget out. The first thing that we say in our first script, which is how we get over the brokerage agreement discussion, is I ask one question. It says, has anybody taken the time to sit down with you and show you what it takes to buy a house in this market? Now it asks 2 questions. One, has anyone done it? And Kathleen, nicely pointed out that, well, less than, 0.5% of 0.5% probably ever does it. So I know the answer is no. Or 2, has anyone shown you what it takes to buy it in this market? If you're talking to me right now, you haven't bought a house in this market because I'm defining what this market is a month ago, a year ago. And then we go through the 7 steps to do it. And within 2.5 minutes, we've sold every one piece of our value. They'll sign any brokerage agreement we want, and we've got a new client. We've already started that process from the start. So we talk to them about it. And then depending on where the conversation goes, sometimes it goes into what do I need to do? And sometimes it goes, what's the value? And sometimes it's what can I afford because I've never even gone that route.
So I would imagine, Jason, once you provide the education and the information, right, it would be very simple to say, okay, so now that we've gone over what it takes to be successful in this market, the next step is we sign a buyer agency agreement, and it's like the natural progression, right? There's no resistance.
Correct.
Okay. And you don't say, well, if you want to, it's 3, like you just say, hey, the next step is we sign a contract. And I'm going to share with you something that I presented, but I didn't highlight. And if you want to talk another 30 seconds about it, Jason, while I pull this up,
sure.
I want to share with you
I'll give you the little nugget of
reframing.
while you're pulling that up, if you don't mind. Literally, our script goes like this. Has anyone done this? Like, no. So when we're done with this conversation, I'm going to go through the 7 steps. And the reason why we pick 7 is it's a magic number in business. It's just complicated enough they need you. It's not so, few steps or too many that it's unachievable. We're going to go through our brokerage agreement, what that does, why it allows me to work for you, how we get paid in our 3% fee, and what we're going to do in order to make sure we negotiate that to the other side. We're going to talk about the financials. If you need to get a pre-approval, get you over to the lender, discuss what that means, and making sure that we encompass what we need from the brokerage agreement and what you can afford. We're going to start the search phase, go into searching for properties, making sure that what you need and what your desires are in this market in order to find you exactly what you need based on what you can afford. We're going to go see some homes. And when we find the home that meets those needs, we're going to go through the contract phase. Everything that you need to make sure we encompass the brokerage agreement, your closing costs, anything that you need to get that to close. We're going to go through inspections and appraisal, make sure we go through those steps and get it done correctly to get you to close. Is there any questions? And that's the abridged version. It's about 30 seconds longer, but I saw Rob come back. That's literally our first thing that we say in a slower tone. And literally, I'll send a BBA within 15 minutes and I'll usually get it signed within the hour. Because most of the time I don't have to explain anything more or they've already understood it. And I've said more in that 2.5 minutes than most agents say to them at all before they ever go see a home.
So I'm going to ask you this question because this is framing the next conversation or the next point I want to make. And I'll ask you, Jason, did you ever see a house that you sold 12 years ago for, 150,000 that's now 650,000? You're like, man, that's not worth that. Because we've been in the business so long, sometimes we might be skewed by history.
Well, I've only been in business 10 years, so I've never said that. But I did see the very first house I sold for, it was 109,000. I think it's worth 275 now, and there's no way in the world I'd ever pay that. So
Okay, so
yes.
right, so because you have that history, right? You're like, there's no way that house is worth 275 now. And that's because we have that context, right? And I think sometimes history or habits are not great for us to be objective to the current environment, right? And the reason I'm framing this is if we never had the business operate the way it used to be, where we run around with buyers without a contract, having them sign a contract would be a logical progression, right? Just because we have this legacy of having done it for years and years and years and telling buyers, you don't have to worry about it. The seller's paying my commission, right? That's why there's a little bit of discomfort in that conversation. But I think this is a really great way to share it with a buyer and frame it. There are 3 contracts that govern a real estate transaction. There's the listing agreement between the homeowner or the seller and their representative, their realtor representative. Then there's the buyer brokerage contract, which defines the agreement between the buyer's rep and the buyer. And then there's the purchase contract between the buyer and the seller. It's so simple, right? And maybe maybe I should make this frame available to put in your buyer presentation because isn't it logical? I see I only see a few pictures here while I'm sharing the frame, but we all struggle with it because it's not been like that for 41 years for Eric, for 10 years for Jason, for 29 years for me. It's never been like that. And now it's a bit of a pivot. And I'm going to make this bold statement here, which is that the affordability and the poor first-time buyers, they can't afford it because they might have student debt and homes are more expensive now. All of that stuff. I don't know. Is there anyone that bought a house in 1980?
Yep.
I was one.
What was the interest rate then?
12.
I mean, I think it went up to like 17 or 18%, right?
I think my parents
Right.
bought in 80 and I think it was 17.
And Robert Garver, did you really buy a house in 1980 or you just know about it?
No, that was like the first place that my wife and I bought was, and we paid 17.5%.
Okay,
Right.
so So cry me a river, folks. Like, you know, I don't care that the prices were a lot lower. Paying 17.5% interest was not easy. Okay.
No,
So right now, we just need to educate people. And I remember in my years as a lender, okay, if any of you ever referred a client to me, it would never be like some of the lenders say, oh, they don't qualify, right? And then just throw it in the garbage. Because I feel that's the way lenders behave in the industry. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, Jason, they can't afford to make that offer, right? I would reframe that and say, hey, Jason, great news. I know, what's the midpoint of your market, Jason? 300, 400?
About 350, depending on which neighborhood you're in.
Okay, 350. So Jason, your clients, they can't afford to buy that house for 350 now, but the good news is we've come up with a plan that they'll be able to afford to make that offer in June of next year because we put together a financial plan. Okay, to me, that's a solution, right?
Mhm.
And I believe a lot of people can go about, you know, I don't know if Frank, looks like Frank disappeared, but you know, I saw Frank help Tony Johnson with somebody that had 3 cars. A couple had 3 cars with car payments nearing $4,000 before insurance. They were making almost 170,000, and they couldn't afford a house. They couldn't afford to save money. That wasn't oh poor me. That was an education issue, right? Somebody had to take the time and show them that, you know, if you want to own a house and not be in the rental for life business, that you need to have a different strategy, right? So maybe instead of the average age being 28 or 26, maybe it can be 29, but not 40, folks. And
Hey, Rob,
I want us to be the crusaders to stop that. Yes, Terry.
don't you think that we'll get a real good shot in the arm if they push through that 50-year mortgage?
Oh,
To we, my honest opinion, Terry, is it will get people talking about it and it will give us an opportunity to pull them in and educate them. But that
Because
alone,
if it's the monthly payment that's holding them back, that's going to be a substantially low monthly payment. And I mean, God forbid they're in the house 50 years for a $450,000 house and pay 800,000 in
interest.
principal
interest.
and interest. The
So,
house is still going to be worth 3 times more than what they paid for it.
so
And you
Terry,
still have ownership.
here's my candid opinion is that
Okay.
it's probably going to be 8 to 11% lower payment. Okay,
That's
and I don't,
it.
huh?
I thought it would be substantially lower than 8%.
No, because you know
More
when you
risky of a loan, the interest rate's going to be higher.
Right.
and if the interest rate is higher, that might make it only an 8% difference. And if the interest rates were to be the same because they say, hey, these loans are going to pay off the same time, then you know it's not significant, and your taxes are going to be the same. If you're putting a lower down payment, you're going to have higher PMI. I mean, I think it's just a talking point. That's my opinion, and I think most people, if they're educated and they have the will, like you can make a sacrifice and you could ride Uber on Saturday twice a month if you needed to raise some more money for a down payment. If you were motivated to buy a house, because when I bought my first house, you know what? I spent a lot of time saving money to buy the house. I didn't get a gift. Okay. It's because I wanted it. Now, if you educate them and they may want it. Now, another thing, and I think this was in the NAR study, was the deferral of just 5 years of buying a house from 33 to 38 has $150,000 wealth impact on a 38-year-old.
I want to add something if I could, Rob. You were
Absolutely.
talking about how people say, well, you know, the cost of the homes were so much less with the interest rates. So as you know, I've been in the banking mortgage world for a really long time because we were both with Norwest a long time ago. But prior to that, I was in the banking world and I saw promissory notes being paid off where somebody actually lived in their homes, paid $13,000 for a home. Yes, it was a lot less money. Yes, they made a lot less money, but the rate was in the mid sevens. The interest rate in the late 50s was in the mid 7s. So that really can kind of negate that, just because that was a really long time ago, in the late 50s, and it was still over 7%.
Look,
It was
Wish I
just
had
such a,
copies of those notes. It was insane when I saw that.
the
there
bet.
was such a sense of pride for people burning their mortgages when they were paid off in those days.
They did, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the Scottish thing that when you pay off your mortgage, you paint your front door red? I think it's Scottish.
That's
Oh,
It's
cool.
Irish or Scottish.
I didn't know
I don't
that
think my
one.
HOA
Yeah,
would
they
allow
always
it,
used to
but
say you never should paint your door red because there's a proverb that when you pay off your mortgage, you paint your front door red so that everyone knew that your house was paid in full.
interesting.
Except mortgages used to only be 20 years, not my parents only had a 20-year mortgage.
Really?
Look, we're
That's
getting,
great.
We're
We didn't
getting
have
off track.
30-year mortgages
we're
until
getting, we're getting in
rabbit
the
hole.
minutia. No, we're getting in the minutia here, but
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
look, if you want to make 2026 better and you want to help solve a social problem, educate buyers.
Yeah.
Okay. You take a page from Jason's book, and say, look, you want to see this house? Okay. We need to sit down first. Right.
Hey,
Like
Rob,
change the standard. Go ahead.
I was going to add the other thing that we should pay attention to, and I just came across it, is that we pick a lot on our young buyers that don't know what's going on and they're still renting. There is a niche group of young 25, 30-year-olders that are very, very knowledgeable based on YouTube and TikTok information. And I just sold a $338,000 villa to a couple that knew the math, and they came to me already knowing the math. So I am all about educating other people, but if we target the generation that really knows the math and has figured out that they can afford X, Y, and Z, those folks can tell their friends who are ready to buy, and then we can become more of a, trusted
Right.
business advisor because they know their stuff. I mean, we pick a
So,
lot
so,
on a,
so, so
on the,
Alina, I'm telling you, like, most people on this call don't know everything about home ownership, right? Because we've gotten into home selling, not selling home ownership. Like, I would study all of the factors. Like, I would want to know them inside out, forward and backward, just like I know absorption rates, I know the days on market impact, I know all the things that we know about selling a house. We need to have that level of engagement for buyers. And if they get some good information on TikTok and YouTube, I'll bet you that there's 9 pieces of incorrect information for everyone that's correct. I
Right.
don't know. Jason, are you active on social media?
I am.
Do you ever cringe? Do you have cringeworthy videos that you see?
I've made cringeworthy videos all the time.
But,
Hey,
but I
Rob.
mean, like, there's a lot of clickbait that's not reality, right? Or it's information that's skewed for a particular goal. I mean, is it possible that they're really wealthy? Now think about this for a second. Is it possible that the really wealthy people that control a lot of the social media want to suppress people into renting their beautiful high-end luxury homes for more money than they paid to own to get them trapped into that cycle? I
Yep.
mean, what they're doing is it's like a drug. They're
Sure.
getting them. Oh, you have a gym, you have a spa, you have parking, you have a concierge. We pick up your dry. So they just bait them into staying there forever. It's like the frog in the boiling water. They don't realize it until they're cooked. They're financially cooked.
You know,
So
I love social media so much because of the amount of misinformation. It allows me to go like getting into politics, getting into tax advice. There's like 6 people I follow in every category. There's a political advisor that literally she'll go into exactly what the law written said on both sides of the aisle. So you can actually understand it, make your own informed decision. I implore anybody who gets on social media to watch some of the stuff coming up because when your clients call you, and Alina brought up a case where they knew, But there's a lot of people that think they have the math. There's a really rich guy right now that tells people don't buy your own home because it doesn't make sense because you're paying taxes. And what he's saying is utterly nonsense because he's not taking into account that there are people out there that work from home and can write off part of their own personal home as a home office off of your mortgage and your bills. There's a whole slew of things that are not accounted for in that equation that I think that we can show our value by knowing what's out there and going, no, I understand why you have that. Let's talk about the reality.
So Jason, is it more of a buyer's market where you are, like in Texas?
In Florida? No,
In your part of the state.
Yeah. It's a seller's neutral market. We've got about 4.5 months of inventory where we should be. So we're just on the cusp of a seller's market, but we call it a seller's neutral because that 5 to 6 transition period where you're on one side or the other of the aisle, buyers are able to get stuff, but sellers still can command the price point that they're at. So you're not seeing rapid decline, prices are holding steady, that sort of thing.
So in Ivy's market and in your market, you can help buyers by educating them. And if they don't want to, like, if they don't have the information, why would they want to buy a house, especially when they hear crap like on social media, right?
Yep.
Like, you don't want to do that. And the only person that can stop that is us, right? They go to a financial advisor. Is a financial advisor, if I go to my Morgan Stanley or my, Chase rep who does securities and say, hey, tell me, is it a good idea to buy a house? Do they have like 12 or 200 slides to show them that, no, put your money in the market and rent, right? There's no advocate for buying a house.
Yeah.
Okay. The only person that benefits from that is the homeowner and us. And if we're not loud, the financial decisions are being controlled by others. All right. And that's why the average age of the first time home buyer is absolutely absurd. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's objectionable. And we're not victims of it. We are not. We can change it. We can change that by education. We can't convince somebody that doesn't belong in a house, but we can educate people. And there's probably nobody that should be in a house that can't be restructured in 12 months. So if you're a solo business person, right? Maybe you take less depreciation and you don't write everything off in 1 year so that you can afford to buy a house. Some of those people I've known, Frank has given them bank statement loans or DSCR loans where they can buy a house where you don't need to have income. Okay, people don't know that. People think, oh, well, half of my income is from a gig job that I do, right? And, I don't show enough income from it. But there's a solution for a lot of that stuff. And it's our moral obligation now to get that age down. Like, I'd love to see RE/MAX have an initiative to drive that age down to 33 again. Right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of things happen in life when you become a homeowner, right? Number one, if we can get the average age down 5 to 7 years, people are going to be at that same age, probably $150,000 to $200,000 wealthier. And to me, I think if I make people wealthier, I'm going to get more repeat and referral business, and I'm going to feel good about it. Okay. If I'm getting a call from, Zillow, Realtor, and I run around to open a door for somebody, then they buy with somebody else and they give me resistance on a buyer broker agreement, I look at it as my fault. Because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome, right? The public's been trained by somebody with an incentive to get flex referral fees, to have buyers keep making these inquiries and go to 2 or 3, Zillow agents so that Zillow gets their cut from one of them, right? But we've all sold people homes. They have friends if they're younger. The older people we sold to often have children, nieces, nephews that we can help. We don't do a good job of educating. And I could come across with any one of your clients as not being a car salesperson, saying, I authentically care If it's not now, I want you to have the information so you can identify when the right time for you to buy, Kathleen. Is that okay? Right? Is there anything uncomfortable about that conversation? No. And do you think it could be rising to the level of, if you consider yourself to be the go-to person for somebody's real estate, that you not only have a financial interest, but a moral obligation to make them aware of what's possible? Right? And if you're too shy, if you're too uncomfortable to say, hey, I want to make sure I get to speak to your children and teach them some financial literacy so that they will know when it's the right time for them to make that decision. Who's gonna give you a hard time when you say that? Nobody. Right? And where is financial literacy taught in college? I don't think we do a good job at that at all.
It's not even in a business degree.
Right? They don't teach you that.
It should be in high school, actually.
Right, but look at the result. The result is we have the average first-time home buyer at age 40. We have less sales, and we have a crisis, and we are part of that crisis. Okay, our inaction is causing this to happen. So therefore, if we raise our standard and we make ourselves available for those conversations without having commission breath, then I think I would feel really good about it. And I know everybody who's been a couple years in the business and had these conversations have helped somebody buy that they didn't think they could buy. And they've all felt good about that, because that's probably one of the better sales, at least emotionally, even if it's not the biggest commission check. When you sell somebody, Kathy, their first house, right, and you see them light up, like, that transcends the dollars, doesn't it?
Yes, not only that, it's amazing. You can use the story of selling that for other buyers. I remember when I first came into the business, I sold something to a friend of mine. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo. And even though they haven't purchased or moved up, every time they were in a situation where somebody lost a job or they banked on the equity of their home, which allowed them to become wealthier. Now they're in a position that they're ready to sell, and they're moving out of, I'm sorry to say, New Jersey. I'll be referring to Pennsylvania, but
I know a guy.
owning that home kept them a roof over their head, food in their stomachs, and they were able to raise their children.
Hey, I have, while we were on this call, I sent a text to my daughter, who's in that age group. I asked her if she has friends who don't own a home, or knows people in that age group who do not own a home, and if so, why? And she said her friends do own homes. From talking to people 5 to 10 years younger, owning a home seems very unattainable to them, so it is no longer their goal because they're so expensive. That's what's going on out there, is at least from her sphere. I thought, well, I might as well ask somebody who's in that 35-ish age group, what the thought is. And I know that's only one person, but she's out there, and there's her answer. So they don't think it's attainable because it's so expensive.
All right, so here's something I just put in there. If you go to a local employer, the benefits of promoting homeownership to your employees, statistical information on improved productivity, longer employment with the company, more stable employees, less absences, better engagement, reduced relocation risk to take them out of their job. So, there's a tremendous benefit for us to go to employers and come up with a plan of data showing that, hey, homeowners are less transient in working with you, and it's very expensive to retrain employees. They're happier, they're more productive, they're more financially stable. I think if you have employers in your neighborhood and you use ChatGPT to come up with that story, they should invite you to come speak to their their employees, just like if there was like a wellness seminar, right? Because they want their employees to be healthy. They want their employees to be financially healthy. And we have that ability to make them more loyal, less turnover, more productive, all of these things that we can provide. But we just sit there and we just say, oh, it's tough to buy a house. Isn't that unfortunate, Jason? It's tough to buy a house now. Some people's kids think it's not even attainable anymore. Well, damn it, it's a mission. Like, have that conversation.
Anything that's worth having in this world should be tough. Let's find a way to do it.
Yeah.
I think we also have to manage expectations. Somebody coming out for the first time may not be able to afford something that's totally renovated, move in with luxury cabinets and beautiful bathrooms. You have to manage expectations. You have to let them know, hey, start here. Use this as your starting point.
Kathy, great point. But how about you buy something that's not ideal? You have a plan to live there for 5 years. You get 5% appreciation in 5 years. You now have $60,000 extra equity to put down on your next house so that you can now afford it, right?
Yep, that's the other point.
Here's my favorite line. You're not looking for your forever home. You're looking for your home for the next 5 years. Because statistically,
Exactly.
you will buy and sell your next home in about 5 to 7 years. That's a national average.
Yep. And the national average of first-time home buyers is too damn high, and we can change it.
Right.
All right. We can have those conversations, and doing the right thing will also put money in our pocket because we're getting rewarded for doing the right activities. And I will tell you, don't force anybody into buying a house that doesn't belong. Spend time to find the people who can afford it. Find the people who are willing to, maybe, work 2 days a month doing a side gig, right? Or maybe they're willing to skip a vacation the next 6 months so they can have a bigger down payment. It's not our decision to decide that they don't go on a vacation or that they don't buy that fancy car that they can afford. It's our decision to give them the options, right? And it's our decision to educate them on the options. And I'm up in the standards saying that it's a moral obligation for anybody. If talk to the kids of your clients, make sure that you make yourself available to give them a financial literacy education on home ownership and say, look at Kathleen, it may not be now, but don't you want your kids to understand what it's going to be like in the future and to be able to plan for that instead of waiting and saying, I wish I would have planned. So anyway, I appreciate everybody. I really am I'm very disturbed by the 40-year-old first-time home buyer, and I want to make a change. So join me on this journey here, and let's change some lives for the better, and let's help our local markets. Everything that these buyers coming into the market is good for the ecosystem, and it's good financially for us. Have a great weekend, and for those who went to T2, thanks for investing a couple of days. Bye, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you, Rob.
Yes, bye-bye.